I'll have something else for that.
I'm not worried about it.
I got plenty.
What I know you're worried about.
So, you're not taking requests tonight, are you? What do you want to put? Buy a booth.
Yeah?
Totally.
All right, I'll do it for you.
Thanks. In fact, I'm gonna sit in the front row.
Okay. Okay.
But, you know, all the rabbis have been coming by all week going, Parshambo, you know, because everybody knows I'm reading.
Oh, yeah. Well, once it's, but watch it, they can watch it after the fact on the live stream, so you did.
Everybody knows that we're celebrating.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Well, I haven't mentioned the Hebrew Academy in a little speech. So, yeah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We'll take a moment or two, let some people straggle in, and then we'll begin, okay? We start a couple minutes late. I can always make up the time.
He was here at 5. Yeah,
Yeah, I looked at the list. I was thinking, I'm like today. I'm tomorrow on the list, and then I got to start over. All right, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. I want to welcome you all. It's nice to see so many of you. Welcome to those who are watching on live stream. I'd like to get us warmed up a little bit. Why don't we sing this classic, appropriate for this evening? Hine ma tov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov manayim shevet achim gam yachad. We begin tonight with Kabbalat Shabbat. Let's begin on page 13, and we'll sing Shalom Aleichem together. We'll do it here in the sanctuary, and then we'll do it in the multipurpose room for dinner. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Asharit, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Machi, Machi Malachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem LeShalom, Malachi Ashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Machi, Machi Malachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu LeShalom, Malachi Ashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Machi, Machi Malachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Tzidchem LeShalom, Malachi Ashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mimelech Machi, Machi Malachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. We begin with Kabbalat Shabbat on page 15. With Psalm 95, we sing it together from the top. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena l'Adonai. Naria, Naria, Litzoi, Shenu, Negad Mahavana Bidoda. Naria, Naria, Litzoi, Shenu, Bismir, Naria, Lo. Lechuneranena, 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 Ladonai. Lechuneranena, 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 Ladonai. Arba'im shana gud bedor, va'omar amdoi leva ve'im le'dudrachai, asher nishbati v'yabi, im yevon el meduchati. We continue now on page 16, 4 lines from the bottom of the page, as we sing from Psalm 96, Yismuchu hashamayim, let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad, let the sea and all it contains exult. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, V'dagel haaretz, Yiramayam, 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 Umelo, Yiramayam, 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 Umelo. Ya'alosa dav'chol ha'shebo, aziranu kol ha'zehar, livnei Adonai kiva, kiva lishbot haaretz, yishbot tevel b'tzedek, v'amim be'emunato. We turn now to page 17. Psalm 97, let us read responsibly in the English. Adonai is sovereign, let the world rejoice. God's lightning illumines the earth, fire consumes God's foes, mountains melt like wax before Adonai, the earth trembles. Shame covers those who worship idols, those who take pride in revering images which must themselves bow low before God. You are supreme over all the earth, highly exalted beyond all that is worshipped. Light is stored for the righteous, joy for the honorable. Join me in the last 2 lines. Orzaru ala zadik, ulei Yisrael simcha. Orzaru ala zadik, ulei Yisrael simcha. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, v'yodu lezecher gadol. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai, v'yodu lezecher gadol. Let's turn now to page 19. Let's read responsibly Psalm 99, and we'll conclude with the Romamu. Adonai is sovereign, nations tremble. God is enthroned on high, the very earth quivers. Sovereign, mighty rules with a love of justice. You alone bring about equity, ordaining justice and compassion for the people of Jacob. Moses, Aaron, and Samuel, God's chosen ones, called out to Adonai, who answered them in a pillar of cloud. You responded to them with compassion, even as you rebuked them for their offenses. Last 3 lines, page 19. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'izdachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'izdachavu lehar kodsho. Keep. Kegadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Keep. Kegadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'argajo. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'argajo. I invite you all to rise. We turn to page 20, Psalm 29, Mizmor LeDavid. Mizmor LeDavid, Avul Adonai b'nei Elim, Avul Adonai kavod v'oz, Avul Adonai kivod shemo, Ishtachavo Adonai be'adrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, el hakavod yirim Adonai hamayim rabim, Kol Adonai ba'agowach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Shover Adonai edazeh halavano, Vayagidim kamo egel Lebanon, V'sirion gemo ven re'imim, Kol Adonai chosev la'avodesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh, Kol Adonai echol elayalom, Vayechesov yarod ve'echalo gulo merkavod, Adonai lamavu yashab, Vayeshev Adonai melech le'olam, Adonai od le'amo yidin, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Please be seated. We turn now to page 21 for L'cha Dodi. And this evening, let's sing the first verse, the second verse, the last verse of page 21, and we'll do Boi V'Shalom on page 22. L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela, L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela, Jamor b'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishme'anu el ha'miyuchad, Adonai echad, Shemo echad, l'shem u'diveret v'lidila, L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela, L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela, L'ikrat Shabbat lecho v'necha, ki megara b'racha merosh, megedem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh v'bacha Shabbat techila, L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela, L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela, Hitorere, dorere, kiva orecho mi ore, shedaberi kiva ol Adonai, alayich nigla, L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela, L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela. I invite you all to rise, face the rear of the sanctuary as we greet the Shabbat Queen. Last paragraph, page 22. Boi v'shalom aderet ba'ala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzala, toch emunei av segula, boi chala, L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela, L'cha Dodi l'ikrat gala b'nei Shabbat nikabela. You may turn around, you may be seated. Let's read responsibly Psalm 92, a song for Shabbat, and we'll conclude 4 lines from the bottom of the page with Tzaddik. A song for Shabbat. It is good to acclaim Adonai, to sing your praise, exalted God. Your works, Adonai, make me glad. I sing with joy of your creation. The thoughtless cannot comprehend, the foolish cannot fathom this.
The wicked may flourish, springing up like grass, but their doom is sealed, for you are supreme forever.
Your enemies, Adonai, your enemies shall perish. All the wicked shall crumble. The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. They shall grow tall like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They will thrive in the courts of our God. Four lines from the bottom of page 23. Tzadik Adam Yivra Ki Eretz Balevanon Yizgeh Shetulim Beved Adonai Mechazrot Eloheinu Yavrichu Od Yenuvon Bezeva Dishenim Virananim Le'agid Ki Ashar Adonai Tzuri Tzuri Velo Avladabo. We turn now to page 24 for Psalm 93. Let's read together in the Hebrew, Psalm 93. Adonai malach gegut lavesh, lavesh Adonai oz hitazar, aftikon tevel baltimod. Nachon kisacha meaz, meolam ata, nasu'un harod Adonai, nasu'un harod kolam, yisun harod jokyam, mi kolot maim rabim, adiri mishpream, adir bamarom Adonai, edotechan emnu meod, Levetechan of HaKodesh, Adonai l'orech gami. I now invite those among us who are reciting the mourner's Kaddish to please rise. Recite the Kaddish with me on the bottom of page 24. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah. Bi'alma divrach dirutei v'yamlich machlutei. V'chayichon v'yomechon v'chayid l'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala of Ismad Kariv v'yimru. Amen. Yehi shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal. Shemed kudisha richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbichata v'nechemata. Da'amir an bi'alma v'yimru. Amen. Yehi shalom haraba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. I invite you all to rise for the Baruch Hu on page 28. Baruch Hu et Adonai Be seated. Let's read responsively on the top, on the left, page 28. Read together. Praised are you, Adonai our God, who rules the universe, your word bringing the evening dusk. You opened with wisdom the gates of dawn, designed the day with wondrous skill, set out the succession of seasons, and arrange the stars in the sky according to your will. Adonai Tzvaot, you create day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness away from light. Eternal God, your sovereignty shall forever embrace us. Praise to you, Adonai, for each evening done. Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Elochai v'kayam Tamidim Loch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Adonai Amari V'Ravim. We turn to page 29, our love song Ahavat Olam. Sing with me. Ahavat olam b'Yid Yisrael amcha avda Torah u'mitzvot chugim u'mishpatim otanu limadida Hagen Adonai Eloheinu b'shavenu u'b'gomenu Naseach b'chugecha ahavat olam v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'b'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed Yehem chayenu ve'orech yameinu u'bahem nege yomam v'layla Ahavat olam b'Yid Yisrael amcha avda Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadida Hagen Adonai Eloheinu b'shavenu u'b'gomenu Naseach b'chugecha ahavat olam ve'ahavatecha Ad azer mimenu le'olamim Baruch Adonai Amo Yisrael, Amo Yisrael, Ahavat olam b'Yid Yisrael amcha avda Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadida Hagen Adonai Eloheinu b'shavenu u'b'gomenu Naseach b'chugecha ahavat olam Naseach b'chugecha ahavat olam Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad V'yahavta Eid Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'ayu ha'divarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom ha'levavecha v'shinadam levanecha v'dibar tabam v'shivlecha b'veidecha v'lechlecha b'derech shachvecha v'kumecha U'gashadam l'hoda yadecha v'yudodavod b'neinecha u'chedavdam amezuzot beitecha u'visharecha Continue silently through the middle of page 31. Adonai Elohechem Emet. We turn to page 32. Let us read responsibly, line by line, top paragraph of the English. We affirm the truth that Adonai alone is our God, and that we are God's people, Israel. God redeems us from the power of kings, delivers us from the hand of all tyrants, bringing judgment upon our oppressors, and retribution upon all our mortal enemies, performing wonders beyond understanding, marvelous beyond all reckoning. God has maintained us among the living, not allowing our steps to falter, guided us to triumph over mighty foes, and exalted our strength over all our enemies, vindicating us with miracles before Pharaoh, with signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. God smote in wrath Egypt's firstborn, brought Israel to lasting freedom, and led them through dividing waters, their enemies were still strength in the city. When God's children beheld the divine might, they sang and praised, gladly accepting God's sovereignty. Join me in the middle of page 32. Micha mocha ba'ilim Adonai, Micha mocha nedar ba'kodesh, Nora dilot ozei veleh. Micha mocha ba'ilim Adonai, Micha mocha nedar ba'kodesh, Nora dilot ozei veleh. Malchudecha ra'uvanecha bogei ayam livnei Moshe zeili anu ve'amiru Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar ki v'Adonai Yaakov ugalo me'al chazak mimenu baruch Adonai God Israel. We turn now to page 33, and on the left, let's read responsively the middle paragraph for the Hashkivenu. Protect us with your gift of peace by helping us to overcome temptation. Shelter us in your embrace of peace when we are caught by conflict or desire. Cherish our fragmented lives, make our lives whole again through integrity. Protect us from ourselves. When we falter, help us to conquer the enemy within. When we blunder, restore us. With compassion, teach us. And peace is based on your Torah. Uferoz aleinu, Sukkot, Sukkot, Shelamecha, Uferoz aleinu, Sukkot, Sukkot, Shelamecha, Baruch Adonai, Habarei Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, V'Kol Amo Yisrael, V'Yerushalayim. We rise now, we turn to page 34 for Vishamru and the Chatzi Kaddish. Vishamru B'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'azot et HaShabbat L'dorot HaBeri Olam Vishamru B'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'azot et HaShabbat L'dorot HaBeri Olam Bein Yomei B'nei Yisrael Oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam, v'shamiru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat la'azot et HaShabbat l'dorot HaBeri Olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai Adonai el hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shameru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'azot et hashabat l'dorotam berit olam. Ubayom ha'shiviyi Shabbat vayinavash Shabbat vayinavash Shabbat vayinavash V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'azot et hashabat l'dorotam berit olam. Yidgada v'yidgada shemei rabbah B'yama divrach erudei v'yamelech malchudei B'chayechon v'yomechon V'chayedecho b'et Yisrael Ba'agala ba'agala V'izmagari v'imrel Yehi shmei Rama mivorach Li'olam omer maya Yidbarach v'ishtabach V'idbar v'itma v'itnaseh v'idada v'idale v'idalal Shemei kodeshah Lehila mingo bilchada v'shirada Tushbechata v'nechemata Da'amiran ve'alma v'imril. Amen. The Mariv Amida begins on page 35A or 35B, through its conclusion on page 38, a time for personal reflection and your own, of course, private personal prayer. continue our service on page 47, I'll do a rendition of Vayachulu this evening by special request. Just so you know, as we're celebrating my history here, this melody was inspired around the year 2000, 2001, in those years when Craig Taubman used to come to our sanctuary and perform with his band. So I was thinking about what he did, and I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to come up with a little melody that's a little counter, a little different. I remember when I first presented it to Rabbi Kiefer, I was a little nervous. I kind of introduced it, and I said, this is the way they might do Vayachulu, thank you, in a house of worship, in the place where I grew up, where I was born, Savannah, Georgia, but not exactly a synagogue. Anyway, it goes like this. And sing along, I think you know this. Hashamayim v'haaretz v'chozevam v'yechelu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chozevam v'yechel Elohim v'yom hashivim elachno asher hazah v'yishbod v'yishbod b'yom hashivim mikol melachno asher hazah v'yechelu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chozevam v'yechelu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chozevam v'yavarech Elohim et yom hashivim v'yigaresh odo kivol shavat mikol melachno asher bara Elohim la'asad v'yechelu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chozevam v'yechelu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chozevam. Thank you, Brother David. Actually, I'm going to invite you to rise for the next one, Magen Avot. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Gadol, Ha'gevur Ha'nora, El Elyon, Gonei Shamayim Ha'aretz, Magen Avot B'Devaro, Mechayim Edim B'Ma'amaro, Magen Avot B'Devaro, Mechayim Edim B'Ma'amaro, Ha'el Gadol She'en Gamo, She'en Gamo, Aminiach Le'amo, Be'yom Shabbat Kodsho, Be'yom Shabbat Kodsho, Shabbat Kodsho, Magen Avot B'Devaro, Mechayim Edim B'Ma'amaro, Magen Avot B'Devaro, Mechayim Edim B'Ma'amaro, Kivam Ratzav, Kivam Ratzav Aniach Lehem, Lefanav Navod, Lefanav Navod Be'yir Avavachad V'Nodev Elishemo, V'Nodev Ishma V'Choyam Damid, V'Nodev Ishma V'Choyam Tamid Me'yin HaBerachot, V'Nodev Ishma V'Choyam Tamid Me'yin HaBerachot, HaBerachot, Magen Avot B'Devaro, Mechayim Edim B'Ma'amaro, Magen Avot B'Devaro, Mechayim Edim B'Ma'amaro, El HaHodahot Adonai Shalom, Mekadesh HaShabbat, U'Mevarech Shevei, U'Meniach Abegadosh Aleyam, Kedoshene Yonek, Zecher Lemazeh, Lemazeh Vereshit, Magen Avot, B'Divaro, B'Chayim Edim, B'Ma'amaro, Magen Avot, B'Divaro, B'Chayim Edim, B'Ma'amaro. You may be seated. Very good, very good. We turn now to page 48. Let's read in the English together on page 48 at the top of the page. Our God and God of our ancestors, find favor in our Shabbat rest. Instill in us the holiness of your mitzvot, and let your Torah be our portion. Fill our lives with your goodness, and gladden us with your triumph. Cleanse our hearts so that we might serve you faithfully, lovingly and willingly. Adonai our God, grant that we inherit your holy Shabbat, so that the people Israel who hallow your name will always find rest on this day. Praise to you, Adonai, who hallows. Baruch Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Invite you to rise, page 48, for Kaddish Shalev and Kiddush. Yigdav Yigdav Shemei Rabbah. B'Almati Baruch Devi Amichbach Devi Chaychon V'Mechon V'Ched Chavei Yisrael. B'Agalav Ismad Kariv V'Yemeru. Amen. Yeshmei Rabbah Mevarach. Le'olam Alo Me'omaya. Yidbarach. Yibrach V'Yistabach. Yidbarach V'Menaseh. V'Tadav 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 Shemei D'Kudusha. Elam Mikol B'Chadav V'Shivadav. Shv'Chadav Nechamatzad. Amram V'Yemeru. Did Gabel Sodon Vodon to Yisrael? Kodam Hon Bishmaya V'Yimeru. Amen. Yesh Tam Rav Mishmaya V'Chaim Alinu V'Kol Israel V'Yimeru. Amen. Oseh Shalom Imramav. Huyazeh Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al Go Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedushat mitzvot davar ba'anu, Shabbat kodsho b'yava v'ratzon inchilanu, zikar olam hazeh v'reishit, ki hu yom dechila v'kra'ei kodesh, Zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, kivanu b'charda, ve'odanu kedashta, mikol amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava u'beratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Remain standing for Aleinu, page 51. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon ha'gol, l'tegnu l'yoter reshit, shelo asanu k'vei ha'razot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, ve'lo sam k'elkeinu kahem, ve'gor aleinu k'chol hamonam, v'nachnu korim, tu b'toratecha, Adonai yimuch le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai le'melech ad ha'aretz. V'yom ha'u, Hiyeh Adonai echad. U'shema, U'shema, U'shema echad. U'shema echad. You may be seated. At this time in our service, we honor those no longer among us with the Mourner's Kaddish. We're reciting Mourner's Kaddish, observing a yard site. I invite you to rise at this time, page 52. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divrach gerutei v'yamlich machutei, b'chayichon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalal b'zman kariv v'yimru, Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach, le'olam olamei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei d'kudisha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'olma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, L'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. You may be seated. And now I invite Jim Levy for some remarks.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. My wife and I, Jenny, we moved here from New York to Anaheim about 45 years ago. And our first priority was to buy a home and join a shul. We did both. Jenny and I have been temple members for the past 45 years. And we been involved in many activities and took on many positions within the shul. It was my privilege to have been nominated and elected temple president 15 years later in 1994 and served in this position for 2 years. These were some turbulent times in our congregation. And my first major task was to hire a cantor. We formed a search committee and made it known throughout the country that we were seeking someone to fill this position. We interviewed many, many people, many highly qualified people, but our committee felt that none of them filled exactly what our committee needed for our cantor. Then suddenly, we struck gold. It was brought to my attention that there was someone in our community who might be able to fill this position. Our search committee interviewed this candidate. We grilled him, and he gave us some of the right answers. It was a perfect choice. Our search committee decided who we were going to get. We offered him the job, and he accepted. Thank you, Zev, for being that person. We love you, and you have served us for the past 30 years with great distinction. We love you.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Sorry, but my remarks are not quite as polished as Mr. Levy's remarks. Well, I just wanted to thank Zev Brooks for everything that he's done for me spiritually and for my family spiritually. And this evening's Kabbalat Shabbat and Mariv service was just an example of how Zev's davening and his feel for Judaism and the Jewish religion just echoes within me, maybe you, and just puts me in a much higher plane of spirituality than I could ever imagine. So I appreciate you so much for that. So a couple notes that I have written down here is that my earliest remembrances of Zev Brooks was, weren't you in the children's choir at Temple Beth Emet? Were you in the white robes there on the other side of the bima?
Yep.
I remember that. And I also remember that when Zev first came here, weren't you, didn't we have the Seltzer Rabbi at that time? Was that long ago? One thing that I do remember from Rabbi Kiefer is what he always said about Zev Brooks, is that Zev davens the same as if there were 5 people here or 500 people in the room. He has that ruach the same. And so we certainly appreciate that. And especially during the high holiday, I can't help but, Zev channels Cantor Modell. And I know this might be blasphemy to say this, but I think Zev is better than Cantor Modell. And then what also registers to me is, we all come in here with different states of emotional needs, and that's why we're here, is because, God helps us get us through the good times and the bad times. But no matter what I'm going through, I can always count on Zev to be a rock and just to be the same every Shabbat, no matter what he's going through personally as well. And I certainly have always appreciated that about Zev. And not many cantors read Torah every week like Zev does. I mean, what do they call them now? The cantor soloists. No, that's not Zev Brooks. Zev's a real cantor, reads every word of Torah every Shabbat, and so we certainly appreciate that. And just the last thing I'm going to say is that in my position as I was a past president of Temple Beth Emet, like Jim and like Jenny and many of us here, I should have gotten out much more to other Shabbat services at other temples to see how they're doing things. And I can only tell you that to drag, and this is what I've always said, to drag me out of Temple Beth Emet on a Shabbat morning, you have to do it with a crowbar. But as what Zev Brooks has always said is, with a crowbar or a golf club. So anyway, I'm just going to close by saying, the last thing I'm going to say is that I feel very blessed in my life, and I hope you do too, by having Zev as the cantor of Temple Beth Emet and as my friend, and I love Zev Brooks. Thank you. All right. Sorry, that was over 1 minute, but that's okay.
Well, it's a pleasure to see all of you. And first, I just want to wish a mazel tov and congratulations to those who came to services and found a seat in the back, okay? It's not easy. I remember once on the high holidays, I was a boy probably singing that youth choir for Cantor Modell, and it was high holidays. It was pretty crowded, and these people came in, and they're looking for seats. I'll never forget my father from on the other side of the bima said, You know, there are plenty of seats in the front. And somehow they managed to find seats in the back, so it worked out. First of all, I think after 30 years, I kind of ponder the time. It's quite a remarkable length of time. Really think about it, 30 years. I think, what, 30 years ago, how old are you, Jim? Like 63 or something like that? I mean, think about it, where you were 30 years ago, and then where you are today, and that gives you a sense of how much time has passed since I've been here as your cantor, which has been so fulfilling for me. And I thank you, Jim, for your remarks. I remember those meetings. It was you, it was Ken Levin, and it was Barry Klatzker in the room that I called my little office. Frankly, I don't remember being grilled, or maybe I really did handle it well, but so the first thing I want to do is say a Shachlianu. Thank God for being alive, for all of us being alive, and this congregation thriving to enjoy this wonderful day. Let's do this together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shachlianu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Amen. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of my personal history and reflect some thoughts about my tenure here at Temple Beth Emet, and reflect upon some of the people, both present and no longer with us, that made a difference to me in my role as your cantor and in this congregation. So we're going to go back to May 1977. May 1977, I was living in Philadelphia. Go Eagles! And, and I was a 9-year-old boy. My father came back from California. We were at a synagogue then. He was the rabbi at a synagogue, believe it or not, called Temple Beth Emet, okay? You know, on the East Coast, it's Beth Emet, Torah was Kodesh, that kind of thing. So this was Beth Emet, all right? And it was in the northeast of Philadelphia. It comes back. I'm at a school called Solomon Schechter. I still remember this. And he brings back these little knickknacks, pens, little things like that. And they say Disneyland on it. And we were so excited. Disneyland. We're a 9-year-old boy living in Philadelphia coming to California. I remember that. And it was August 10th, 1977, when the family flew out to California. And every day, every August 10th, every year, I celebrate another year in Orange County. Just so you know, I'm the only one still representative in the family. My brother and sister, they live in Las Vegas, and my other sister lives in San Diego. But I'm still here in Orange County all these years later. It was August 12th, was my first Friday night service here at Temple Beth Emet. I don't have very specific memories, but I remember coming with my family. It was quite crowded. The choir was singing. They had a wonderful oneg, and in the social hall, they had like youth activities in the multi-purpose room. It's quite intimidating. You know, I was always, honestly, the rabbi's kid, so I never really had any anonymity, even as a 10-year-old. But just a little history. That was my first service. And I attended services regularly with my father. And as I did, as David kind of mentioned, I did channel the melody and the nusach of Kerner Model. And I sang in the youth choir. And I remember, you know, the youth choir was quite sophisticated for a youth choir. So we learned this 4-part harmony. And, you know, at the time, I had a very high voice, you know. And so I remember Kerner Model would sometimes give me the high solos. One of them that Eileen might appreciate was the song Chlusa. We sing it on the high holidays. Chlusa, Chlusa. I remember singing that probably, you know, 6 keys over middle C. and my father turned red. He was like, you know, couldn't believe I was singing that thing so high. I remember that. But I learned a lot from Kerner Model, and the influence of his melodies and his talent, his ability is deeply ingrained in me. And when I came back to serve as cantor at Temple Beth Emet, I brought a lot of that back. That's what I knew. And of course, that's what you knew, and that's probably why I was quite a good fit. I went to school in Philadelphia. I went to school at a place called Solomon Schechter. It was a day school. And when I came out to California, I began the 5th grade. I went to the Hebrew Academy. And the Hebrew Academy was then in Westminster. Now it's in Huntington Beach. I started there 5th grade. I was there 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. At the Hebrew Academy, we would daven every day, like the Shacharit davening. And we did it, you know, they would sing it. They'd go boom, 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 boom. And that's really what I did here at Beth Emet, the melodies I learned here, and the way the davening was drilled into me at the Hebrew Academy. That's really why I learned how to daven, and also the skills I had at Solomon Schechter. But that's why I learned the melodies I would sing for Ein Keloheinu or different things. It really helped me become comfortable with the liturgy. And I remember Rabbi Newman, who is now the principal, the dean of the Hebrew Academy, has been for years. When I was there in 1977, he was my 5th grade teacher, probably a young man of 30 years old himself. And I'll tell you this, whenever I would lead the davening every once in a while, but whenever they had Hallel, like it was Hanukkah or something was going on, they had Hallel, Rosh Chodesh, he'd always ask me to lead because he knew that I could sing the Hallel. I figured you got to sing some extra prayers I love this kid did it. They called me Zev Shalom. My middle name is Shalom. Zev Shalom, Zev Shalom. That's what they used to call me over there. Now, before I was bar mitzvahed, and I was bar mitzvahed here on May 9th and 10th in 1980, just as a matter of information, my sister Sharna, she taught me how to read Torah. She learned how to read Torah on the East Coast at a school called Akiba Academy. She was 3 years older than me, and so she taught me how to read Torah. And Jack Greenberger's here. He's an excellent Torah reader, and he can tell you, reading Torah it's not easy. It takes a lot of practice, and it's like skiing. I don't really ski, but those who do ski tell me, everybody falls when they first start. But then you keep practicing and practicing, and after a while, you get pretty good at it. And that's what I did. I would be the person doing the Torah reading and leading the services at USY in the youth group. You know, before my 18th birthday, they'd call on me to do those things. And so all this kind of experience kind of gave me, or I developed sort of this knowledge that I share with you today, the skills that would help me become a cantor. But where it kind of really started is, because of what I could do, I was asked to be the music. They called it Rosh Musica, the head of music at Camp Ramah. So I was probably just finished my senior year of high school, and I was doing this. It was actually my first year of college. It was 1986. And so I was Rosh Musica at Camp Ramah, and I'll never forget, I got a phone call. I said, "Have you got a phone call?" "Yeah, who is it?" "Phone call at camp? You never get a phone call. Who is it?" "It's Rabbi Chaim Seiderfeller from Hillel at UCLA. I'm like, "Really? Okay." So I pick up the phone, and he says to me, "Hey, Zev, listen." Now, I don't know how he knew this, but word gets out. He said, "Listen, the guy doing our high holiday services at Hillel, he's retiring. He's going to Florida or something like that. So we're wondering if you would, lead us at Hillel at UCLA for the high holiday services." Now, to be honest with you, I really didn't know the liturgy for high holidays, and I used to spend that time with my parents, and we used to have a really nice time with my father, at his congregation and the whole family. So I was a little reluctant. I said, "Well, I don't really know it. I'd like to spend that time with my family." Then he said the magic words, "We'll pay you." What? I couldn't believe it. "You'll pay me?" I remember this conversation like it was yesterday. I'm like, "How much?" 1986 now. He goes, $800. I go, $800? My next words, "When are the dates?" That's how it went, okay? So I'm not kidding. So they made me a recording of this guy named David Ackerman. Maybe some of you know who he is. He made me a recording of the high holidays, this kind of thing. And so I learned it. I learned from this tape and just studied and studied to learn these melodies for the high holidays. And so I did it. I did it my sophomore year at UCLA. I led the high holidays at Hillel. I was a little nervous, but I got through it. It was okay. And so what happened, because I developed this skill set, then I used to sing at my father's shul for the high holidays. He had a cantor there, but that cantor was from England. He went back to England. So my father and I used to lead the services at a synagogue called Temple Shalom of Ontario. And I remember doing that, after my stint at UCLA. My junior year, I sang my sophomore year at UCLA. My junior year, I went to Israel, my junior year abroad. So it kind of that was the end of that. But they certainly planted the seed. And then what happened was, while I was at school, I remember during this time, I would sing in my father's synagogue. So I didn't go to synagogue all the time. I wasn't like at shul every Saturday. But the Saturday, they call it Shabbat Tshuva, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I decided, maybe it's a good idea. Maybe I should go to synagogue. So I was going to law school at the time, frankly. I was living in the Burbank area. I decided I'm going to go to a synagogue called Burbank Temple Emmanuel, just so I could attend a congregation, okay? So I show up, and I told you, my sister taught me how to read Torah reading. So I'm there, and I'm davening with them. I'm a young face, haven't seen me, right? It's not like I'm going to blend in. And the rabbi comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, after services, he goes, I know your sister, your Sharna." I go, "Yeah, she does Torah reading." I said, "Yes." He asked me, "Will you do Torah reading?" I said, "Yes, I can read Torah." He goes, "Listen, we need a Torah reader." Another one of these conversations. So I'm like, "Sure, I can help. I don't mind." Literally, I was there because I thought I should go to shul, complete circumstance. So I started reading Torah for them. Every week, they read on a triennial cycle. His name was, Ken, you know his name, Rabbi Warsaw. Warsaw was his name. Rabbi Warsaw, okay? And so he asked me if, actually, Rabbi Warsaw was the second rabbi. The first one is a guy named Rabbi Mervyn Tomsky. So Rabbi Tomsky, he asked me if I could, start doing the Torah reading for them, and I did. And so they had a woman who was a doctor, used to lead their services, and for some reason she was doing more doctoring than cantoring. So they asked me if I would start leading the services there. I said, sure. Every Saturday morning, I started, leading the congregation at Burbank Temple Emmanuel, doing their Torah reading. And I did it for a little while. This is all in the early 90s. And I started to do that until I found out that a congregation, Seal Beach in Laguna, Congregation Shalom in Laguna Woods, not Laguna Woods, Seal Beach, Leisure World, they were looking for a cantor. I said, really? Wow, okay, that sounds interesting. I have this skill set. So I went over there. This is in 1993. And I said, okay. I applied there, and they said, yeah, come on board. That was really the first congregation other than, where I was sort of the guy. I was the cantor. I was leading services there Friday night, Saturday morning, did the high holidays in 1993. But it only lasted 1 year, because what happened was, all of a sudden I got word, as Jim was saying, in 1994, Temple Beth Emet was looking for really like a part-time cantor. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. That's a synagogue I was bar mitzvah. I'll have a lot of history there. And how I found out about this was because there's a fella named Ronald Weiss. Ron and Sylvia Weiss were members here for many years. They live now up by Magic Mountain. Their son, Paul Weiss, was one of my best friends in high school. In fact, Paul Weiss and I met here in this congregation when we were both going into 5th grade at Kadima, okay? 5th grade. And actually, he was pretty popular here. I think he might have been the president of Kadima or something like that. Maybe he beat me for the president of Kadima. I can't even remember. But we were in Kadima together. Then we became, my father left the synagogue, as did I. We became reacquainted in freshman year of high school and became very good friends. So Paul's father told me, hey, Zev, they're looking for a part-time cantor at Temple Beth Emet. And so I came in 1994. And I remember the date. It was, I believe it was actually, I know the date. I met with Jim and Ken, and I met with Barry. I believe you were there. I don't remember exactly when we met, but I first auditioned at a service for the congregation. It was on, I have the date here, I wrote it down. It was on May 7th, 1994. And how do I know that? Because on that same Sedra, Bahar B'chukotai, 14 years later, I was bar mitzvahed on that very same bima at Beth Emet. So my audition was literally the anniversary of my bar mitzvah, okay? By the way, I still had to learn, I didn't memorize the Haftorah for my bar mitzvah, okay, just so you By the way, I also looked it up. On that morning, we had Mavarchim Chodesh, the prayer you do for the new moon, okay? So I sang that too. Not the melody I do now, that'll get to a little later, but I remember singing that. So I auditioned in May 7th, and I began, I believe it was July 1st, 1994. When I auditioned, I was 26 years old. And when I began, my birthday's in June, I was 27. And I started right before Tisha B'Av. I remember Tisha B'Av was, was basically July 16th. Now, Kander Modell was still here at the time. He was kind of active, and I was very thankful for that because he pretty much handled Tisha B'Av. It was kind of like a big thing. I just started, here comes Tisha B'Av. It's not exactly your normal cantor thing, but he was very, very helpful in taking care of that. So early on at Temple Beth Emet, as you recall, we had a lot of youth, and I spent a lot of my time tutoring the Bat and B'nai Mitzvah. It was a lot of fun for me to do that. Honestly, they were coming up, they were 12 or 13. I was 26, 27. We really related well. I had a lot of fun doing that. And after a little while, one of my students, her name was Lori Hoffman, Sherry Hoffman's daughter. She has another daughter named Jenny, now goes by Tzipora. She and another couple friends, they made me this little sign, a little plaque. It said, "Can or cool," okay? It's like this painted sign in like purple. I still have it, "Can or cool." I'm like, yeah, I'll go with it, I've been called worse, right? So, that was early on in 94, 95, 96. And like I said, it's hard to believe about the passing of time, how long ago that was. I was once doing a performance, just to give you an idea, with that little group we have called Orange Jews. It was like a Hanukkah performance up in maybe Fashion Down or something like that. And this young man comes up to me holding a 2-year-old, and he says, "Cantor?" I said, "Yeah." "Hey, do you remember me? You bar mitzvahed me." I said, "Well, what's your name?" He says, "David Schwartz." I say, "I certainly do remember you. Your mother made a yarmulke for me. I used to wear it for like holidays and used to play violin, right? Your father's from Pittsburgh or something like that." I couldn't believe it, but I remembered him. But there he was, holding a 2-year-old son. It's been a long time. One thing I want to comment on, I did kind of mention it during the service. I think Doris might have been president at the time, and they were bringing Craig Tomlin in to kind of create a different vibe or something with the service early 2000s. And so I said to myself, you know what? Craig Tomlin's a fantastic musician. He writes good melodies. I'm going to try that myself. And that's when I came up with that idea for Vayachulu, just something completely different. Or the bluesy melody that I use for Blessing of the New Month, okay? That was sort of inspired by that too. The things the little Elvis thing I do, say all that stuff came from the idea my father had. My father lived by the credo, Ivdu et Adonai b'simcha, worship God in joy. And so I believe the same thing. And to do that, at least as a singer, you know, singing is about emotion. Sometimes you need to sing mellow, sometimes something is sad, but oftentimes things can be happy or joyous. And so I like to bring that to the things that I do. One melody, I'll say this, I wrote a melody for Hallel, Min HaMeitzar, Min HaMeitzar. True story, that was inspired by the death of Mark Feiner's father, Murray Feiner. He died in like 1995. You know, I was just kind of new here learning, my part in the choir. And when he died, I remember sitting at the keyboard thinking of that. And that song is, out of my depths I called upon the Lord, he answered me and set me free. It's a song about, part of it's a song about comfort. So that melody came to me then. Eila Ezkara, I remember sitting at the piano. Eila Ezkara is the song we sing in martyrology. I remember writing that melody, and Mark Feiner actually took that melody and developed it into a choral piece. So I've always enjoyed writing melodies. I leave the things that are classics alone, but if there's something I think that can use a little bit of a twist, once in a while I'll add a melody. But I don't like to do it too often because I like things to be familiar for everybody as well. So a couple more things. When I think about my service as a cantor in Orange County, I've been doing it for 30 years, honestly, I'm probably one of the longest serving active cantors in the county. I mean, I don't know who else has been serving that long, maybe someone from Chabad, I don't know. But 30 years still active, I think it's quite remarkable, and that's a tribute, of course, to all of you, because I can't sing to nobody, I have to sing to you. It takes a minyan, as Rabbi Kiefer said, you know, to create a davening, a worship service. So a lot of credit to all of you, and to those of you, of course, who've supported the synagogue and run the synagogue. I come every Shabbat, or when I come on Friday, and my bema's here waiting for me, and I'm ready to go, but it takes a lot to have this bema here waiting for me. But when I think about the other cantors, I say to myself, you know, I don't have the greatest repertoire, I know that for sure. I'm not the greatest musician, I'm not the greatest composer, I'm not a choir director, I certainly don't perform on all these shows like other cantors do, but I can tell you one thing I am confident when it comes to the cantors in Orange County, and maybe elsewhere, I am definitely the best dressed. Yes. Okay. I'll take that to the bank, okay? And to tell you the truth, it's kind of funny. Unfortunately, maybe Ducky, you're watching on live stream, but every once in a while I dress, and Ducky would say, you look sharp, and I think about that because I want to look sharp for everybody, and especially for Ducky. So if you're watching, I hope you enjoy. What I'd like to do now, a couple things before I conclude. I just want to, I want to thank certain people, both here and not here, for all they've done really personally for me in helping me to fulfill my function for you as a cantor over all these years. This is kind of like, you know, that Oscar speech. I want to thank. The only difference is you actually know these people, okay? So, first of all, I want to talk about some people that are no longer with us that were very important to me in the choir. The first one is Bob Friedowitz. Bob Friedowitz was a wonderful man, a sweetheart of a man. And when I first started at Beth Emet, remember, I was 26 years old. You have this very rich choral tradition. I'm the cantor. I've got to sing up front. I'm supposed to sing in the choir, too. And I sang in the bass section. I sang in the bass section at the Chamber Singers in Malera High School. So that was comfortable for me. But I didn't know the music. I mean, there's a lot of liturgy that Mark Feiner was doing based on what Cantor Modell did and other pieces he brought in. But I would listen to Bob Friedowitz. Every rehearsal, Bob Friedowitz would just basically sing in my ear. And he really effectively taught me the parts that I would sing in the choir. So I owe him a great debt. A woman named Judy Thomas passed away. Judy Thomas was a personal friend of mine. Real briefly, I used to drive her to choir rehearsal at night. She couldn't drive at night. Then I'd take her home. She was out of the way, but it didn't really matter because when I got home, I would sit at her kitchen table, and she would always make me a small bagel with butter and a tomato. Okay, I'll never forget this. And I was like in Zoneville. I mean, I was like so relaxed, I couldn't even get up out of the place, okay? Another thing Judy Thomas and I had is we talk about my movie, The Yankles. This is the time I was crafting The Yankles. I was drafting the screenplay, trying to get this thing done. And we'd sit at her kitchen table, and I'd talk about it with her, kind of like brainstorm with her a little bit. And I remember on her table, she had several drafts of the script just stacked on top, one on the other. And then, of course, there's Mark. Mark Feiner, he was a wonderful singer, a wonderful musician. He is solely responsible for keeping the choral tradition of Cantor Modell and really of this congregation alive and vibrant when I came in 1994. through 2004 and even beyond until our choir no longer had the numbers really to sustain it, the quality that we did in the past. But of course, a lot of gratitude to Mark Feiner. And then there are congregants. These are congregants that are no longer with us. And I mention their names just because you know who they are, and it gives you a sense of the span of 30 years. And these are people who are great assistants to me or with whom I shared a special bond or both. And I'm just kind of mentioning their name, maybe a little bit about some of them. Maybe I'll just mention a name here or two. But Jerry Flom, he knew me when I was 10 years old. Some of you, Dr. Turbo, has known me when I was 10 years old. Any of you that were here in 1977 have known me since I was 10 years old. And I can always tell who they are. They're the ones who call me Zev, and the other people call me Cantor. See, but that's okay. Just don't call me late for dinner, because I always am. But Jerry Flom used to do mincha for me, or mincha for us on the high holidays. I used to babysit his children, who now, of course, have children of their own. Len Kessler was my gabbai. And I didn't remember that, but I read a speech that I delivered in 2004, which is 20 years ago, but already 10 years after I started as cantor, just to give you a perspective of time. And he was my gabbai then. So I give a shout out to Len Kessler. Rabbi Joseph Smith, remember Rabbi Joseph Smith? He was a gabbai, and he was also very helpful, very friendly. Sam Eiferman was a very sweet man. Just a little note, I remember once the men's club had some kind of celebration, and I was invited to be honored. Men's club in LA, okay? Some big event. And Rabbi Kiefer was there, and Sam Eiferman came up. Sam Eiferman came up from Orange County just to be there and celebrate with me. He was a sweetheart of a man. Ralph Monfield was someone I was fond of. Ralph used to lead preliminary services, used to have really nice conversations with him. Jerry Silverman was also a big help. He was my gabbai. Always came to help me read Torah. Lenny Shapiro, he was someone I was very fond of. We used to have lunch together. He used to talk about when he came to LA, when the Angels came to LA. He had a lot of rich history about LA and sports, and I really enjoyed talking with him. Vic Seinfeld is another person of blessed memory. I loved Vic. A true story, Vic turned 90 years old, and I don't know if you know this about Vic, but back in the day, he used to hang out near the Forum because Vic owned, I think, quarter horses, and he was actually very good at it. He was inducted into the Horse Racing Hall of Fame at the Bellagio in Las Vegas for his career. But anyway, he knew Jerry West, he knew Elgin Baylor, he knew Wilt Chamberlain, because he used to hang out by the Forum at some kind of club. He knew these guys. In fact, I think he told me that he was in the unit in World War II that was preparing the Enola Gay, which was do you know what the Enola Gay was? So he had a lot of history. We used to talk all the time. He turned 90 years old. I said, you know what? I'm going to do something a little surprise. So I wrote the Lakers organization. I said, there's this guy at my congregation. He's turning 90 years old. Maybe you can send him like an autographed picture or something like that. They sent him a full Lakers uniform, like an official Lakers uniform, put in a box with a note, the whole bit, and they mail it to his house. He comes into Shul, Saturday, after his birthday. He goes, I don't know if any of you remember this, but he's like, hey, I got a Lakers uniform. I don't know how, he was like flabbergasted. He got a Lakers uniform for his 90th birthday. And I was like on the fence. Do I tell him? Because he really wanted to know, hey, where did this come from? It's a mystery. So after about 2 or 3 Shabbases, I finally confessed, okay, But anyway, Vic Seinfeld. And then to Stuart and Joanne Halpern. Do you remember Stuart and Joanne Halpern? These are people, I'll never forget when they first walked into the congregation, the sanctuary over there, because they were members of my father's synagogue in Ontario. They heard me sing the high holidays when I would sing with my father. And when they probably known me since I was 14 years old. And when they walked in, I did a double take, but I was fond of them. Renee Oran, another person, we used to have really good conversations. Renee Oran could be tough. Every once in a while, she'd, let me know when she was upset. But she was a sweetheart. And Bob Messy of blessed memory. Bob Messy I sang in the choir with when I was not only as an adult, but I remember him singing in the choir, when I was in the youth choir. And Bob Messy taught me, he used to sing Shachrit on the high holidays. And then when he moved on or he couldn't do it any longer, he taught me how to sing the Shachrit. The Shachrit that I sing is the Shachrit that he used to sing, wherever he learned it from. So I owe him that debt. Sarah Enton is someone else that was very special to me. She always used to send me a little card on the high holidays wishing me well. I thought that was very sweet. Jean Franklin, of course, was important to me. She always was very helpful on the Bima, and in any way that she could, of course for the congregation in general, but also me in particular. She always used to do the Haftorahs, and bless Jean's heart, no problem, Jean. Of course, she always liked to choose the longest Haftorah and then do it extra carefully, but that's okay. We had a good lunch waiting, bless her heart. Two more I want to mention, of course. One is Bruno. Bruno was very, very special to me. We used to have great conversations, and Bruno passed away on June 6, 2020. It was during COVID, so Rabbi Berman and I would come, and we'd basically be singing to an empty room. I felt like I was going to, like, Paramount Studios, just singing in, studio number 62 or something. But I'll never forget that Shabbat. Talking to Bruno, it was early morning Torah study, and then we came to do services, and Bruno went off to do something, and then I got a call from Lou. Bruno's no longer with us. I'll never forget that. But he was a very special person, and I want to bring him up. And then, of course, Rabbi Kiefer. Rabbi Kiefer and I were on the Bema together for 17 years. 17, I guess more than half of my tenure here. He was very special to me. I always enjoyed listening to Rabbi Kiefer. I learned a lot from Rabbi Kiefer, both as a cantor and as a Jew. And one other person I want to mention, this person is with us, but he's not here. He's also very special to me, is Shelley Weisbach. Shelley Weisbach would always be here before services began. You could always count on him as helping to make the minyan for the preliminary service. He was always very, very thoughtful, always reached out to me on my birthday or an anniversary or anything like that. I was very, very impressed. And he's unfortunately, he can't be with us because he's ill. But another thing Shelley used to do, which maybe here it not as necessary, but after every service in the other sanctuary, I used to take the books and make sure the Sidurim were all facing the right way, looking right, not upside down or this or that, or scattered about or left on the pews. And he took his time to do that. So he got here early to be here at the service, and he took his time after the service to do that. So thank you for allowing me to go down memory lane a little bit. I just thought by mentioning some people that were important to me, they would remind you of who they are. I'm sure some of them were important to you and give you an idea of what 30 years really is. And now, I just want to thank those that are with us that have been very helpful to me. First of all, in the choir, I do have to thank Carol Roman and Steve Berman. They were the choir directors after Mark was no longer with us, who kept the choral tradition alive for all those many years. I also want to thank Perry Goldstein. Perry Goldstein is my partner in Orange Juice, but why he's important for us is because he's also really a wonderful producer of shows. He was very involved in a lot of the shows that we put on the Bema for the entertainment of our congregation, and so I want to thank Perry for that. I need to thank Eileen Levine, and I want to thank Bob Strickler for all that you do for me on the high holidays. I enjoy singing with you. You keep a little bit of that choral tradition alive, and I really appreciate that. I want to thank Josh Nowak. He does Torah reading for me. He also does mincha for me now on the high holidays. And, believe it or not, on the high holidays, my voice gets tired. And it helps when I have someone to help, especially on Yom Kippur. I want to thank Ken Levin. You've always been there to help me when I need someone with the liturgy, if I'm off for a weekend or reading the Haftorah for Haftorah Yonah. Alan Meyer, the same thing. I appreciate all that you do for me. You're always there to help with Torah reading when I need it. If you're here and I need it, I know I can count on you. And Jack, it's so nice that you're here. All of us really appreciate your skill and expertise in reading Torah. Ron, nice to see you as well. And I just want to thank you for that. I mean, you might think I say it as a matter of fact, or I don't take you for granted. I really appreciate what you do and how you do it. We all do as well, and all of you that help participate and help me on the Bema. Of course, David Weiss, thank you for all your Torah reading. I'm looking forward to your second retirement. I know I'll get to sleep in a little bit longer now. David's committed to doing a little more Torah reading when he has a little more time, and we all appreciate that. Rebecca Weisbach, she told me she couldn't be here, but she called me to thank me, and I appreciate what she does for me. Charlene, thank you for all your help in leading the preliminary service and being a gabbai for me. Robbie, I asked you to do Ashrei not only because we enjoy it, because I could use the break, and it's very nice, especially when I do the blessing for the new month. So thank you for all that you're doing and all your enthusiasm. Of course, when I read Torah, it always helps when I have Gabbayim on my side that I know I can rely on, because it's not easy. And I always feel much more comfortable when I know that if I need a hand, someone's there to help me. And of course, early on, my Gabbayim were, like I said, Len Kessler and Jerry Silverman. But now I have Tamar Breton, who's a wonderful Gabbai, Dick Bondar, I really appreciate. Dr. Turbo, Bernie, thank you for all your help in being a Gabbai. I really appreciate that. Charlene, of course. And then I have to thank again David Weiss for all you do in bringing people up to open the ark, to close the ark, and getting things organized. Like I said, these things don't happen automatically. It seems that way. For me, it is that way. It's automatic. I don't worry about it. But I know that there are people actually doing it, and I really, really do appreciate that. And I also want to thank David Yagubi, who's like mini David Weiss in training, and he's doing a good job. And he's a sweetheart of a man, and I really appreciate what he does. And then, of course, like I did on my 10-year anniversary, I have to thank, of course, Rick Perlman and Alan Perlman. I think they're somewhere. Oh, there you are. For all that you do. I mean, the Torah doesn't set itself. And I've been here for 30 years, and in all those 30 years, I know that you know what's going on, you pay attention to the details, you make sure things happen, and you help the service run smoothly. So, this is all work that's done behind the scenes, but I really, really, really appreciate it. Then, of course, those people who share the Bima with me, Rabbi Berman and I were on the Bima together for 10 years. We were in our band together, Orange Jews, and there's melodies that I sing because Rabbi Berman introduced them to me, and he's just a wonderful man, a wonderful person to share the Bima with. Of course, Eric Dangot, Rabbi Joe Mendelson. I'm thankful that they're here now, and I appreciate listening to them and what they bring to the congregation. To be honest, sometimes people ask me, hey, Zev, who's on the Bima next week? I really don't know. I say to myself, look, I'll be there, and somehow it'll work out, but I really appreciate them being here. And so, in conclusion, and I appreciate you giving me this time, I just want to talk a little bit about singing, okay? Because that's what I do for you. And, I appreciate that the words that I'm singing are sacred. I understand that. So I try to give words when I sing meaning and feeling by singing from the heart. And like David mentioned, it doesn't matter to me whether I'm singing to 6 or to 60. It doesn't matter. Because if you're one of the 6, you're here for a reason, and you're going to get out of the service what I bring to the service. It doesn't matter to me. I sing that way. I like to sing the familiar so you can sing with me, or at least when you listen, you feel like you're listening to some like old favorite recording, okay? I believe, like I said, like my father did, worship God with joy, and that's why I like to bang on the bima and sing upbeat things and introduce fun melodies. And what I can say about it all is over these 30 years, I think we've succeeded together in crafting a wonderful, sacred, energetic, and I hope at times spiritual service through our mutual song, by singing together, okay, by just being comfortable with one another. And ultimately, I believe that I'm really here to inspire. I'm not here to perform. And at the end of the service, I'll say this. I want to conclude with this. I hope it can be said of me the following words. These words were sent to me in a letter in 1991 by an old lady who's now long gone. Her name was Rosalie Gornbein. She was from my father's shul, Temple Shalom of Ontario. And she wrote, "From Hineni to Adon Olam, you give the prayers the appropriate meaning, and I always feel much better when I leave than I did when I came in." If I can do that much, I'm doing okay. So I just want to say thank you all for being here. It's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey for me. And may we daven here together for another 30 years, okay? A long life. Shabbat shalom. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I have the distinct privilege and high honor to present our gift for Zev in commemoration of his 30 years of service. And
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah, this was the same color as my Canada Cool poster. That's right.
And ever so briefly, I promise. Tomorrow morning is early Torah study, 8:30. The only way that I would be there is if I stay up all night. The next day, February 2nd, is bingo, with many thanks to Marion for always being the moderator and leader. On February the 9th is the Super Bowl, but more importantly, it's Men's Club's Worldwide Wrap, and we look forward to that. On February 15th, is that right?
Yes.
Is Women's League Shabbat on February, I always get this date wrong, it's on the 22nd. Okay, I'm sorry, 22nd, Women's League Shabbat. No, the party's on the 22nd. Yeah, so the 15th. Oh, you're reminding me to talk about the 22nd. Okay. Saturday night, February 22nd, is really a special event with recognition for Jenny as being the chairman, our chairwoman. It's just going to be so much fun. I think everybody will be very impressed, very pleased. The entertainment is going to be top-notch, and I'm really looking forward to it. I hope everyone can be there, and it should be a fabulous evening. And with that, once again,
We're going to conclude on page 53 with Yigdal, and then we'll retreat to the multipurpose room for dinner. So let's all sing together page 53. Yigdal Elohim chai v'yishtabach nimtza v'yeinei el b'tziuto echad v'yin yachid yeyichudo neram v'gam mizav le'achduto elu demudaguf v'yeinu guf lo na'aruch elav kedushato kadmon l'chol davar asher nivra Rishon v'yein reishei l'reishito Hino adon olam lecha na'otzar Yoreh gedol adon u'machudo Sheva nevuato nedano Ela anshei zegula Davidim Lo kam b'Yisrael gemoshe od navi U'mabit et emunato Torah demet natan le'yamoel Ayad nevi'o ne'eman Lo yachal Yifa'el ve'lo yamidato Le'olamim le'zulato Soveh ve'yodeya zedareinu Mabi l'zov davar bekat mato Gomel le'ish chesed gemivalo Notein l'rashara gerishato Yishlach l'getz yamim meshichenu Liftot mechagegetz Yeshuato Beiti Michael berov chazdo Baruch adei Shem dilato Beiti Michael berov chazdo Baruch adei Shem dilato Shabbat Shalom.